we find when HaKadosh Baruch Hu approached Moshe Rabbeinu to take over as the leader of the Jewish people, so he is very reluctant. I'm not worthy, it's not for me, I'm a stutterer, I can't talk, etc. So there's a Meshach Chachma, and Brisker Rav says similar as well, that we learn out a halacha from here. The halacha is if the Rabbi comes over to you and offers you to lead the tzibur, to be the shliach tzibur, one should be a little reluctant, turn it down a couple of times, and then take it. Masha Ein Kain, when it comes to getting called up for an aliyah, you should run up and do the aliyah. What's the distinction between the two? So the Meshach Chacham explains is because shliach tzibur, you take on a leadership position. A leadership position, so that's a big achrayus, and it's a big responsibility, and therefore you should show a little anivus, a little humility. When it comes to getting a aliyah, it's kind of like you're teaching Torah barabim. It's a mitzvah, you should run to do a mitzvah. And therefore that's a distinction they make. So after some convincing, Moshe Rabbeinu took the job and approached Paro, and one of the signs he did in front of Paro was, he says, I'm going to turn this stick into a nachash, into a snake. So at first glance it seems like a problem. Like, what do you mean, a stick into a snake? During the times in Egypt, everyone do that. Any little kid off the street could turn a stick to a snake. What was he trying to impress Paro, that the God of the Jewish people is almighty and is powerful? It's like going to a scientific convention and saying, you know what, here's a pack of matches, let me make a fire. What is, it's elementary, what exactly was the message here? What is the symbolism of this snake and the stick? There's a famous question in the Rishonim that why were Paro and the Egyptians punished? Because we all know back in PARSHA Lech Lecha, Hashem promised, told Avram already, Kigir Yelachem Eretz Lehem, you're going to be a ger in a foreign land, and then you're going to be taken out. So it's already a Gzeira min Hashamayim that the Jews are going to be slaves. So why in the world should Paro and the Egyptians be punished? So the Rambam writes, Maimonides says, Einachinami, if it would have said that the Egyptians had to enslave the Jews, then there wouldn't have been a punishment. But it doesn't say anywhere it had to be the Egyptians. It just said the Jews are going to be strangers in a foreign land. It didn't mention the foreign land. It was Paro on his own who decided he was going to do it. So therefore, the Gzeir wasn't for Paro to do it, therefore he did it, therefore he deserves punishment. The Ramban and the Ravid ask, but what do you mean? If you're doing the Ratzon Hashem, you should be rewarded. Who cares if he didn't mention him by... He didn't say, I have to do it, but like the anti-Semites say, we're doing God's work. That the Jews sin, they have to be punished, so we want to take on that role of being God's messengers. So, therefore, the Ramban writes, like, that's not the problem. You're allowed to volunteer to do a mitzvah. You can volunteer to do the Ratzon Hashem. So why in the world then were the Egyptians punished? So the Ramban, the Rabbi says, because they went too far. If all they would have fulfilled is what the Torah said, Kigir Yelachem, they would have been avadim. But to go ahead and murder them, throw the male children into the water, kill and cause all the suffering to others, they went too far. So if they were just doing the Ratzon Hashem, they would be reluctant leaders going ahead and following the will of God. The fact that they went so much more shows they were just doing it because they were anti-Semites and they hated the Jews. And therefore, as the Ramban points out, so not only are they punished on the extra, but they're punished on everything, because it shows that even everything you did up until now wasn't because you were fulfilling God's will, but you're doing it for your own will. So that's the major machokas among the Rishonim, the Rambam and the Ravid in terms of Paro's free will, in terms of, it's a separate question of hardening the heart, but it ties into here as well. But why were the Egyptians punished? Either because it didn't have to be Egypt, or even if it had to be Egypt, they went too far. So what's the symbolism here? So we find in Yeshaya that the symbolism, Shevet also means stick, that we find in the Mefarshim that stick a lot of times is just used as a tool. Like if someone went ahead and took a stick and started hitting someone, and then you go to court and say, what do you want from me? It's the stick who did it. So then obviously they laugh him out. Not the stick is an independent entity. A stick does whatever the person's controlling it, like you're driving a car. You run someone over, what do you want from me? It was the car who did it. It's not the way it works. It's not an independent entity, it's controlled by you. So this stick represents, it's just part of the person who's doing it. However, a snake represents independent power. The Gemara about Bakam, other places, but let's say you tie, it's a discussion on it, but you tie someone up, and then the snake comes and kills the person, so you're not necessarily leveled or otseach. It was done indirectly, it's the snake. The snake, it's a discussion how much an animal knows right from wrong. It clearly doesn't have free choice, but does it know to not to attack a human being? That's a discussion exactly how far we go with that. But a snake is an independent entity, and therefore a snake controls its own destiny. A snake represents your own independent domain, and a stick is representative of this being a tool. So that's what the commentators point out. That was the message Moshe is giving to Paro, not showing you how great God is. It's a joke. Every little kid can turn a stick into a snake. What the message is Moshe is saying, Paro, you think you're going to go and say, well, it was the stick, not me. I'm not responsible for what happens. I'm just I'm doing the Ratzon Hashem. I'm filling whatever I have to. And Moshe is saying, no, you're a snake, and keep in mind that anything you do, if you don't let the Jews out of Mitzrayim, you don't stop torturing them, so you're going to be punished as an independent entity. And that's what the snake represents, and hence that's why he deserved to be punished, and that's why Paro and the Egyptians, God took the Jews out of Mitzrayim through all the many makas and all the other miraculous occurrences.